Hi, my name is Georgia Bonney, and I'm the director and founder of The Thinking Kid, which is an online academy for between the ages of 7 and 13. I'm also the director of the Neighborhood Creative Arts Center in Southern Maryland, as well as the mother of a large family. So I come to you today mainly as a mother, a homeschool mother. We've had 7 of our children grow up and go on to college and graduate school, and I still have 7 at home. All of them are as teenagers. And yes, I'm still sane, but it's a lot of fun. It's a wonderful experience to be part of your child's journey. All right, so we're talking today about devices and using the internet and putting parameters on it and making sure that it's a tool and that it's not something that takes over your children's life. And so being a parent basically is a balancing act, right? I mean, you have children of different ages, of different abilities, with different talents, and you are working to give them the best that you can do and the best that will reach them and help them reach their potential. And it's always a balancing act. And you're always trying to balance their intellectual needs with their physical needs and emotional and social needs and their spiritual needs. And so there's a balance going on with every child, with your relationship, with their progress through life. Now, as we look at the internet, it's become a huge part of our world. And some people would say that it is on par with possibly giving alcohol to the American Indians when the explorers first came. It was a new thing, something that they didn't know what the consequences would be. There were no parameters on it, and it became a downfall among that culture. But I don't think that's completely true about the internet, because we have learned to do things in moderation, and we have to balance all kinds of things in our lives. And so let's just take a look at this chart. And this is an example of how a lot of our society is not balancing the way that we know how to. 86% of students visit social media daily. That's a lot. And 1 in 6 spend over 5 hours a day on social media. That is just a frightening statistic, since the social media is basically unproductive. Let's look at screen time. 63% of students spend 3 hours or more of their free time per day in front of a screen. And I don't know that that's all for educational reasons. 10% of all children play video games for over 5 hours a day. What a horrible waste of time and the talents that we've been given. And let's go down to physical activity. Only 22% of students meet daily physical activity boundary guidelines, and only 41% get enough sleep. And all of this because of a lack of moderation in using devices. And so this is something that we need to talk about. We need to talk about balance. And balance is best acquired by having a plan, right? We fail to plan, then we plan to fail. And so we need to plan to succeed. And one of the ways to do that is to create a schedule. And when we actually factor in everything that we're supposed to do as parents to help our children progress, there's not a lot of time left for devices. Let's talk about the 5 areas in which we should have our child balanced. First is intellectually. We need to make sure that they're academically and intellectually on target. Number 2 is physically. Are they getting enough exercise? Are they eating healthfully? Do they have their hygiene under control? Number 3, socially. Do they have nice friends? Are they interacting well with their siblings? Do they have certain places that they can go to have a good time and practice their manners and their social skills? Number 4, emotionally. Are they emotionally fine? Are they progressing? Emotions also develop just like our minds and our bodies do, and that's something that we need to help them with. And 5th, of course, is spiritually. Are they spiritually healthy? Do they know what they believe in? Do they know where they came from? And do they know where they're going? And so these are all things that need to be balanced. And then also, of course, you've got the routine. Are they along with the physical. Are they exercising every day? Our family gets up every morning, and for many years now, we go and run 2 miles or 3 miles as a family. And many of my children have turned out to be long distance runners because of this daily habit that we've had. And but it perks them up for the day, and then they go take a shower, have a good breakfast, and we're all calm and ready to approach our studies for the day. And so you know, you have to figure that into the daily schedule. Chores, of course, to develop responsibility and a feeling of being a part of the family and having worth. That's very important that you have a chore time scheduled in there. And then, of course, they've got their extracurriculars and their academics and their silent reading time. We call it SQUIRT, our silent, sustained, quiet reading time. And then during meals, we schedule regular meals. And for many, many years, I would read to the children over the meals because it allowed them to learn something and not to have the conversation go in a really unproductive or maybe not great direction. And then also, you know, after dinner, we have a bedtime routine, right? Even as they get up to be teens, you have perhaps a devotional or something that at the end of the day to tie things up. And in this schedule, we have always found it best to have allotted computer time. And so even though we do use our devices, there are certain time periods during the day when those devices are being used, which implies that there are times during the day in which those devices are not being touched. All right, one thing that I think we really have to know is that we set an example for our children. And I'm at fault for this too. You know, sometimes you just really want to get that last email written, or you really want to get that last bit of work done, or you're on the phone and you're not fully engaged with your family or your children. And of course, sometimes that's necessary, but most often it is not. We can put down our computer, we can close our laptop, we can end the phone call, we can just not answer a phone call, we can not look at our email at certain times. But we set an example for our children. So if our devices and what's going on our devices is more important than the conversation we're having with them, we are definitely sending a message. And so that is something that first and foremost that we need to show, is that we're willing to put down our phones and close our laptops in order to have uninterrupted time with them. Moving on, as far as electronics go, we have to show that our devices are being used to help us improve. In our family, we like to say, if you're not whitening, you're yellowing. Of course, that's for the Crest whitening strips, right? For whitening your teeth. But it's also true of our minds and our spirits. If we're not doing something that's making us better, then it's going to be making us worse. There are very few things you can do in life that leave you just static. Usually our time can be spent in a better way. And of course, there's good, better, and best. But we want to be sure that we're using our devices in a way that makes us the best that we can be. And it's just like anything else, just like books, right? I mean, we can take them to the library and say, well, as long as they're reading, it's good. But not all books at the library are good. And we have found that it's safest to just have a huge home library. Best to buy the books at the library sales or used online and have our own family library, because, you know, otherwise, especially if you have more than one or two children, it's difficult to scan all those books that the children choose. And though they may look quite attractive at the beginning, you get into chapter 9 and oh my goodness, things are happening that they never would have heard about, or maybe you didn't want them to hear about. And, you know, it's difficult to choose good quality literature if you're just walking into the library, just as it's difficult to choose good healthy food if you just let your kids free in the grocery store. They may come home with a basket full of Cheetos because they like them, and after all, they are a food of type, right? What your children need is something that you need to guide them towards. So same thing with electronics. They may need online classes. They may need to do a certain amount of studying online. They may need to do that math program online, but what they want to do online may be a whole nother story, and that needs to be controlled. You have to be careful, because if they do not have their devices in a public space, you do not know what information they're taking in. Just like those books that we were talking about. If you give them a book and you haven't read a review, or it hasn't been recommended by somebody or a company that you trust, you do not know what information they're taking into their minds. And their minds are very formative at this time, right? We would not put our child into a room with a stranger and say, go and learn everything that they have to share. Go ahead and find out what their philosophy is about this, that, or the other. We would never do that as a parent. However, when we give them a book, or if we allow them free reign on the internet, we're allowing them to take in information that we necessarily may not want them to have. And so and this is true of movies as well. I think it's important to give them parameters. My philosophy is you can choose any movie you want as long as it's one that we own, right? Because I've already chosen a good set of movies. Or you can choose any book you want to read as long as it's off our shelves. And those are my parameters. And same thing with the internet. You are welcome to go on and do any of these CDs, the ones that I've chosen for you to choose from. And so this is a way to give them freedom, but yet to have parameters. You know that your child has way too much time on devices and that they're getting hooked when you see these signs. When they start to say that there's nothing to do because they don't have the internet or they don't have a CD, then they've lost their creativity. And we all lose it from time to time. That's something we have to protect, is our sense of imagination or creativity, or our ability to find something to do besides being hooked to the internet. And so the other day, my daughter was saying to my husband and I, she said, well, what was the thing when you guys were growing up? Because the thing right now is Instagram. And my husband and I looked at each other and we really couldn't figure out what the thing was. And that's why I found this cartoon to be pretty funny, because I don't know, I guess the thing was playing basketball in your driveway, or playing baseball in the street, riding your bike around, helping at home, reading a book. There weren't a lot of options. Life was so much simpler now. And now there's all these online options. And sometimes when we come off of those online options, we've lost touch with real life. So anyway, going back to how to know when it's too much. If your child is starting to show attitude or get really upset when they don't have access to the internet, it's time to take that device away. And last of all, when they're texting and they're so busy on their phone that they can't make good, decent conversation at the dinner table, we have a problem. And that's when the devices need to be put away for a little while to help us remember how to interact in real life. All right, there are ways to control your children's devices. You could just take them away and become an unplugged family, but devices can be a wonderful educational tool. And so we have lots of services. These were voted the top 6 services in 2020. Bark, which can monitor their time. You can put parental alerts on their computers, on their devices. Custodio, Web Watcher, Net Nanny, which is actually one that we've used, Family Time, or Norton by Symantec. And so there's also services on Verizon, and I'm sure some of the other providers that allow you to, since you have a family of devices, to be able to monitor what your children are doing on their devices. Now, hopefully you have a trust factor with your child and you don't need to go in this direction, but then there's always those moments when people plunge and you want to be ready to be able to approach the situation from an educated point of view. So these can be very helpful in monitoring in that case. These have been very, very helpful for our family. If you're having trouble knowing when to put down your phone, use these safeguards. Feel free to take these and put them on your fridge. We have them on our refrigerator. Turn on your device only after you know what you're going to do with it. If you don't know what you're doing with your device, stop and put your device down. You should only use your device when you have a purpose for it. And that has been very helpful for me. If I'm holding my phone in my hand, then all of a sudden I'm checking my email, and then I'm checking my texts, and then checking Snapchat. Don't do it until you know exactly where you're heading with your device. Don't use technology when you're feeling bored, lonely, angry, stressed, or tired, because you're only going to use it in the most pointless way. And it could even be in a way that's harmful and or just wastes time. If you're feeling those ways, it's time to take a self-inventory and find out why you're feeling that way and not just escape through your device. Don't check your device when you are talking to somebody face to face. Nothing online is more important than a face-to-face communication. So avoid checking or responding to digital messages while you're talking with someone face to face. Avoid sending or checking messages during meetings or during dinner or anytime. You can do that later. Nothing is that critical unless, of course, it's a parent trying to respond to an emergency with a child. But for the most part, try to put your phone away. And for children, make sure that you can see their screens at all times. I think this is so critical. We used to have our computers smack in the middle of the kitchen, and I spent a lot of time cooking in the kitchen. I could see everything that they're doing, and we've moved since then. Our kitchen isn't big enough to hold the computers. However, they're in the very next room, so I can hear them, or I can just peek around the wall and I can see them. And this has come in very handy many times. You know, you can say, "What are you doing? That is not your math program," or that you don't need to be doing that right now. And last of all, don't let them take technology to their bedrooms, especially at nighttime. They're tired and we lose our senses late at night. We do not make good judgment calls. It's best to keep everything out of the bedroom, and especially at night. When you feel like you are just using technology for the sake of using technology, you need to be aware of that. You need to know that you're just using technology to escape, to use up time, and you need to think of something to do when you're on technology and you're not using it productively. Get up, go get a glass of water, go walk around outside, go get something to eat, go talk to somebody, go play an instrument, play some music, or go play some ping pong or something. But stop just being on your device and learn and improve from that experience so that you don't end up being the kind of person that goes straight on their device and wastes time. All right, I hope this has been helpful to you and has given you some guidelines. Feel free to copy paste anything from this presentation. I am the director of the Thinking Kid, and I do believe in using online classes. Since I do have 14 children of all different ages, it was impossible for me to teach them all myself, which is why we reached out and found online tutors and online classes. And so I've had a difficult time finding the kind of classes that I wanted for my children. And so I developed the Thinking Kid for them, actually. And this is an academy for children ages 7 through 13. And classes are only $5 each. $5, that's really quite low. And we have wonderfully educated teachers giving these classes. They teach because they love their subject and they're dedicated to education. And if you're wondering what it's like to take one of our classes, please go to thethinkingkid.org/trial-classes to take a $1 trial class. Just try it out and see how you like it, and let other people know about us. All right, well, I hope this has been helpful to you, and I wish you all the luck in the world in building parameters for your children on using electronic devices, and good luck on your homeschool adventure.